All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 20th special meeting of the Berlin Board of Education. We're going to call this meeting to order at 6:03, and we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so the first item on the agenda is a discussion to cancel the $100 student parking fee at Berlin High School. And one second, let me just look at the expanded agenda really quick. So in our last meeting, I believe the superintendent shared, it was you, right, or Ashley?
Yes.
Yeah, that the choice reimbursement was different than we anticipated. So I'm going to let you just speak to it a little bit, and then before the board discusses anything, we'll need a motion for consideration. So if you want to just talk
So
to
just
it a
to
little
update the
bit.
whole board, earlier last week, Ashley got a phone call from Ryan Curley, the town manager, just sharing that the town council spoke, it was on record about the parking fee still, and that the mayor spoke about the parking fee, and still concerned with it, and the potential of FOI and things, and he said, is there any way you could reconsider looking at it? And then, Ryan asked that I speak with him also. I spoke to Ryan, and also received a phone call from Mark regarding, Mark Kaczynski, the mayor, regarding the parking fee. And one of the discussion points was that our choice reimbursement, which was disclosed at the budget, when we initially went into the budget season, it has been set at 4%, 3%, 2%, and 1%. And the funds that you receive back, reimbursement from the choice or from the state, is contingent upon the percentage. 4% was $8,000, 3%, $6,000, and so on. The state changed the funding structure because, as I said to you last year, many of the districts are no longer able to reach the 4% of enrollment. So it's now 3% receives the extra $2,000 that used to get at 4%. So that allowed some additional funding in the budget. So the thought was, in speaking with Julia and speaking with Peter, and I spoke with Jen also, is that, is there a possibility of not having the parking fee this year, using the choice funds, some of the choice funds, that we would reimburse the people that have already paid and not charge the fee? The intention was to use the funds. I did speak to, Melissa called me after the last meeting and spoke about, the thought was to use the funds for outside seating area for the buses. So when students are waiting for the buses or waiting to get picked up, they'll be able to sit. But that being the case, if they're using the parking fee to offset that, which is equipment, which would be in the operational budget because it's under the $25,000, the students that drive don't actually sit because they drive their cars, which was a great point that Melissa made. So the other thing was, if you look at our senior court at the high school, and speaking to Katie Amenta, the principal, the senior court has all old wooden tables that are cracked and splintered, and it doesn't look that representative. So the thought was to use the funding to update the senior court. So to use the fees from the parking. So the thought would be we'd use the choice funds to not charge the fee, but also to update the senior court this year with some of those some of the choice money that we received in this year. And then, what you determine for next year is contingent upon this budget, but that was the thought for discussion for this evening.
So before we get into, thank you for that summary. So before we get into any discussion as a board, do we have a motion for consideration?
I move to cancel the $100 student parking fee at Berlin High School for the 2025-2026 school year and return all fees collected.
Do we have a second?
I second.
So the motion made by Jess, a second made by Christina. So now we can open it up to a discussion. Who on the board would like to discuss this topic?
I will. We did this because we didn't have the money that we needed. We now have the money from choice funds, and I don't see any problem with reimbursing the students. This is what it was about, and as long as we can still do what we had planned to do with the money, I am okay with that.
Yeah, I think, I was a bit surprised to hear that it did increase and that, we were getting it, because I know last year it was held up for quite some time. And also, I know sometimes with our choice enrollment numbers, we're always worried we're going to hit that quota. So I think that's good. I think, anytime we find extra money, we need to just make sure that we're putting it towards things that aren't putting costs towards the families. But I do wonder, and what's going to happen in years to come. And I also just want to make it clear that, like, the board, me as a board member, I understand when the community has concerns, like, they should absolutely come forward. But I hope that people, will engage in the process a little bit more beforehand, because we can't just change things once we have decisions we have to make. They're going to be unpopular each year, with cuts we have to make year over year. We're going to have to make cuts. They're going to be unpopular, and just because people get upset with them, like, we have to hear them as a board, but at the same time, we can't always change them. Like, we put a lot of time and effort into the decision-making process, and it is valuable. But I do think, since this money was not anticipated and it's come in, it's the right thing to do. That's my 2 cents. Anyone else want to discuss this?
Yeah, I think we've beat this topic to death, and now we're exhuming the body. So with that said, I don't genuinely have a concern about the topic itself. I've already said what I have to say on the matter, and I have nothing to add there. But I will add that, as Julia is trying to touch on, is that it is concerning that, we're making an about face on this issue, and it's predicated on the notion that, well, another board, another council, and mayor is still taking issue with this. Therefore, we need to turn and make a decision and make a reversal. And while this is a minor topic, and a minor amount of money, as Julia is saying, this is potentially setting a precedent for down the road for when we do have to make harder choices, and we don't have the relief of something like choice funds coming unexpectedly and getting this nice windfall where we can reverse this. And we have to dig in and make hard choices that's going to impact the district that are going to be unpopular. This loosely sets the precedent that, well, if the town council or another board has an issue with it, there's a good chance we're going to reverse. And that isn't a good precedent that this board wants to set, because it essentially says or indicates that, indirectly, other boards are governing our actions. And I'm not okay with that. And with that said, I'm abstaining from this vote. Thank you.
Thank you for summarizing what I was trying to say a little bit better. I'm a little tired right now. But I do think that, though we have beaten a dead horse on this topic, as board chair, like, I want to encourage all of you this couldn't have come at a better time for us, because as we go into this budget season, please think carefully about the cuts that we are going to be making as a board and directing the superintendent to make, and the decisions that we are making. Because once we set those, I want all of you to be confident in those. Let's take the time to discuss them, explore them, consider them, ask ourselves, if the community comes out and they're upset about it, are we going to stand beside it and confident? Because that's really a key factor in decision making. Like, we can't just get public pressure and change our mind every single time, and that's not the case here, because we didn't do that. We got extra money. But I think the timing of this is good as we go into budget, so we can kind of ground that and moving forward. Like, no, we are going to have to make difficult decisions, and the decisions we make as a board, you better all stand up to them if those are the decisions you want to make, because we are all around the table.
Yeah, just to be clear, this is about the funds for me personally. If we didn't have those funds, I would still be standing by the decision.
Correct.
I'm just going to second what Jen said. Just going back to the funds. We didn't have the funds. We had to make the tough decision, and as we agreed as a board, we want to keep staff, we want to keep people. It was not a decision that, wanted to have, but needed to have at that point of time. But with the funds here, logically makes the most sense. We didn't want it initially from beginning. It was a have to that was voted on, and now we can take it back. And I think
that.
I think, yeah, agreed.
Just make sure you're speaking
The
into
timing
the-
couldn't be more perfect. Can you hear me? Sorry. You know, don't look a gift horse in the mouth kind of thing. It happened to just fall at a perfect time. We got the funds, there was a lot of pushback, there was a lot of people that were unhappy with the pay to park, and I kind of could see why. The decision to do it never really sat well with me initially. And so to your point, Julia, yes, you're right. You have to really be sure when you vote that it's hard to know what's going to happen down the road, but the repercussions were a lot of pushback. And so when the parents did come out and, you know, voice their opinions, I could see where they would be upset. And it wasn't a favorable decision, for sure. It's a very hard predicament to be in, but I'm really happy that this worked out, because I think it'll calm the waters, and we can reimburse the students and the families, and it's perfect timing. So maybe it was a little divine intervention, I don't know. But whatever it is, it's good, we'll take it.
Anyone else like to share? No, you good? You guys good? So before we move to a vote, just one final time, as we go through this budget season, as we have to make difficult decisions, just know you have to ask yourselves individually, if we have a room full of people upset, are you gonna stand by it, or are you gonna like be wishy-washy? Because we need to stand by our decisions, and we can't be swayed one way or the other after the fact. We need to consider it going into it. So during budget season, that's just all I ask of you guys, and I think it's, you know, gonna make us more confident in the decisions, and, you know, there's always an after that. But if nobody else likes to share, I'll just, okay, we could move to a vote. So anyone else wanna share anything? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, so one abstention, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 1, and no one was opposed. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the review of the questions by the Board of Finance Chair. So Sal sent these questions, and I want to just provide some context, because I know, you know, so when I received the questions, I sent them to Brian and Ashley. Every year we get the questions from them. You guys, we come up with our own questions, but we send them off, and then they just send them, you know, to me. I send them out to the Board of Finance, include all of you guys. But I think that, you know, when it came through, it was suggested by someone, I don't know who, just maybe let's meet with them and talk through. It was Ashley, okay. Let's just meet with them and go through them, and, you know, it might be better to clarify than a back and forth. I know every year Ashley says, come on in, I'll open the books, I'll explain everything to you, and really just trying to open up channels of communication. So the purpose of the meeting a few weeks ago, that didn't happen because I was sick, Peter wasn't able to attend. The purpose wasn't to, you know, have a secret meeting. I think what happened was, from the time these questions were received, December 5th, then the holidays, then Sal finally got back to Brian after the new year, then we tried to set it up so members of the F&O committee could have the conversation. I think the communication with the committee members, something fell by the wayside. As I said in my email, it wasn't intentional. I think I'm not the chair of the committee, but I didn't call Peter. I'm not sure. I really don't know. It was the holiday season, and we don't meet for kind of a while through there. And so the purpose was, you know, let's just have a discussion instead of just sending it off, and let's provide context. We were unable to meet, and I think that's fine, and the board can get all these together, and then we can send them off as long as you guys don't have further questions. But as I stated when I emailed you guys, there was no intent to have any type of like secret meeting. It's just, the timing of it all. It was a month long from the time they were received until we heard back. But I think just the more clarity we can provide throughout the process, the more we can help others understand the process, all stakeholders in the community, whether it's parents, the Board of Finance, whomever. We want that. We want transparency. We want them to understand the funding of public schools because it's different than municipalities. So I wanted to clarify that. But, when we weren't able to meet, we said, perfect, let's just go through these questions first with the board before we send them off, and then we'll send them off. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and if Ashley has anything, follow-up questions or statements, if you want to come up to the table,
So
Ashley.
the thought on this, what you have in front of you is the notice to Julia, copy of the questions, and then there's a copy of each question's
Oh, wait,
answer.
can I actually?
Sure.
And also, when I replied to the email, and I CC'd all of you guys on it, I thought the attachment was just automatically there because I CC'd you. I had no idea. No, Jen sent me an email saying it wasn't, but I think I missed the email. I think just the timing of it all was just missed, and I apologize for that. Nothing was intentional on my behalf.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
And just to clarify a further point, I don't think there was any notion that it was a secret meeting. I mean, it was a posted public meeting, and agenda, so on and so forth. A date and a time. I think it was just the sudden abruptness of the announcement of the meeting with no forewarning, being like on a Tuesday evening or however it played out. And then, of course, the meeting being scheduled on a Friday at 3:30, which is extremely impractical for most people. We got day jobs, So that was kind of the crux of the issue, was the abruptness of it and the very inconvenient, awkward timing of the meeting, as if it were something that needed to be done urgently when it really had no sense of urgency, as we see right here. That's all.
So looking at the questions here, the thought is, if you're, okay, we do not want to release these answers to the Board of Finance, to Sal, until the board had a copy of them. So what you have in front of you are the 10 questions that were asked, which you received rather than earlier, but you also have the answers. And the answers are done in, they're broken out in obviously it's going to the Board of Finance. They want specific numbers. Every question is numbered, is paired here. The thought is, unless you object, because we have another 41 questions to go through tonight, you could review this. If there's any questions, you could reach out to myself or Ashley tomorrow. We can answer them for you. If there's not, we would release this document, as you see, to Sal and the Board of Finance on either tomorrow afternoon, or we could do it Thursday morning. I did reach out to Sal and tell him that it was on the agenda tonight and that we were not comfortable releasing this to the Board of Finance until the board had a chance to look at it, and that we would release it to him shortly after the meeting. So whether it's tomorrow or Thursday, whatever.
Let's establish that, so we're not just waiting. So, how much time do you guys think you need to? Do you want to? Yeah. Do you guys just want to take a second right now to just look over it, and then you can look over it again, and then by tomorrow at like 5? Do you think by 5 tomorrow you could just send?
This is just a breakdown of the information I provided you back in our end-of-year
how we
financial
asked it.
meeting back in, when is that? Is that the August meeting? The August or September, the first meeting where I do the prior year financials. This is it's the exact same information that you guys received back then. However, it's just an accounting speak. So it shows you which accounts I debited, which ones I credited, why I did it, and where that money that I debited, where that money went to when at the end of the year.
If you look
So
at the
that's
questions, there's
how it's
specific
written.
lines that Ashley is giving them. They're asking specific questions and lines. So what Ashley did is, rather than write a narrative, she just actually printed out the lines so they can see exactly how it was debited and credited and the accounting of it. That's what you see out in front of you.
And that is essentially what they are asking. They wanted to know the account number, how much went into a line, how much went out of the line. They wanted itemized receipts for our equipment, things like that. So that's what this is. This is just a numerical way of presenting the information I gave to you in the fall or spring, summer. Jeez, whatever it was.
Summer.
Yeah, they all blend together.
So if you guys have any follow-up questions, though, we can ask them now, or just send it by 5 p.m. Just send it to Brian and Ashley CC me, and then if there's any big ticket questions with responses, I'll make sure it goes to the whole board, because I want to make sure that everyone's getting the same information. So tomorrow by 5 p.m., just write that down, and just send that email out, but I'll give you guys a minute just to look for right now.
Board's questions are more of a narrative, they're not.
The Board of Finance's questions. Okay, so 5 p.m. tomorrow, just send the email to Brian Ashley CCB, because then I can make sure the information is shared with the board, but they can also just reply to the board. All right. Thank you. Thank you for preparing those. All right, moving on to the next agenda item. Discussion of the superintendent's proposed budget questions for 2026-2027. I'm just going to give everyone just a minute to look over these really quick, just on your own. Just take a minute, and then we can kind of go through, because that way people aren't like flipping through as they're explaining other things. So take a moment.
While you're looking just about the format, so there were all the questions were compiled into one set of questions that were duplicate, we kind of eliminated them. And then various individuals behind me helped to answer these questions, including Ashley for the majority. But then you're gonna see the answers in red, and then you're also gonna see if there were other documents. Those documents are on the back, they're referenced. You could follow, if the answer is on the document, you'll find the document in the back. So the thought to go through this is, I know Julia said review, is that we will read the question, like question number 1, equipment, classroom furniture, give you a chance to read what's in red, and then allow you to ask any questions you have after you read it. We tried to summarize the answer in red. If it doesn't give you enough, or you want more background, please, then we'll discuss it. But being that there's 41 questions to move through it efficiently, I think that's probably the best method to use, unless you feel differently.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Brian and Ashley to go through the questions. And, you know, feel free to stop and ask further follow-up questions, anything else that you might have as we go through, okay?
Classroom furniture, board discussion, no specific questions. Example, whether it got new lunch tables, was it necessary? So if you read what's in red, I won't go through reading the whole thing. Are there any questions beyond that? I'll give you a second to read it, and we'll answer any questions as relevant to number 1, and then we'll just move through it in that manner. Any other discussion on number 1? Any other items you'd like to talk about, what's purchased? And so we did share about some of the furniture at the elementary schools being welded, and the welder said they're unable to continue to weld the furniture, you know. So that's, you know, just, we do, if we can get the desks welded and chairs, we do. Any other questions on 1? Moving on to number 2, parking fee. Is it a line item? Parking fee was, you can read it. Okay, so there it is. It's not on the 27 budget at this time, I guess is the best way to put it. it wasn't on our 26 budget, right, until,
Process and look at the money that, we're gonna have to make the decision. So we send we set our number, we send the budget forward. It goes through the rest of the process. We come back with what we land on, and we have to make decisions. And those are the decisions I was encouraging all of you to carefully consider. So we will have decisions to make, and that could be it. But if it's not that, it could be something else.
Okay, so question 3, the first column you see is the projected FY '27. So that's if we made no changes to our current structure. So if everything stayed as is and moved forward as if we're not restructuring the admin positions. What's actually budgeted is the proposed restructure, which still maintains the PPS director at the adjusted salary of $179,588. The 2 PPS supervisor, the elementary and the secondary, that's being restructured into one position. So if you go down, you'll see the assistant superintendent for $97,000. You have a district-wide PPS supervisor for $162,731, and then the additional department head that Brian spoke about in the last meeting for the $6,388. So the difference when you take what we would have budgeted had we left it the same and how we are restructuring the PPS and curriculum departments, essentially, it's an increase of $23,448. Moving on. So the para educators are evaluated annually based on student needs and staffing needs. When grants are exhausted and students require para educator supports, we look for additional funding within the general fund. If that fund is not awarded, then we will typically eliminate a position. Para vacancies are frequent in our department lines, so it's likely that although we are eliminating the position itself, it doesn't actually mean that somebody is losing their job. We just close that vacancy until funds become available.
any questions on that? And typically, we have para openings that are continually being open, meaning that it's rare that we have all paras filled, especially given the times right now, as we talked about, the salaries and things, and the competitive nature of other jobs that are out there for similar pay.
Question 5 is just me reallocating funding from one account to another, and that's specific for our educational financial system. There's not a time throughout the school year where I'm not undergoing some type of audit, either it be federal, state, or local audit. And they have us account for things in certain ways because they want to know how much money is being spent on what they consider special education, regular education, and enterprise. And essentially, enterprise is your athletics. I had the assistant to the director of athletics in the regular BHS clerical line. However, most of the function of his job is working directly for what we call enterprise, so I had to move that to an enterprise account. So it's just, I think it's 2 or 3 lines above where you see that 81% increase, you'll see a decrease of that amount, of that salary, and you just see the funds swapping from one account to another.
So the next one, could we consider decreasing the projected outplacement to 1 instead of 3 and shave some funds off that increase? If there's 3 that's not utilized, where does the funds go? Yes, we unanticipated outplacements. We've reduced it to 0 at times. We reduced it to 1. We always could reduce that amount. Historically, in the budget process, we do reduce it. In the event that we do not utilize the funds, we don't have any outplacement, it does go to surplus. But the surplus can also be used if we have a line, such as our sub account is too low, we could use the money for our subs. There are transfers made within the accounts. Whatever's left there would go to surplus. And as you know, at the end of the year, whatever we spend on surplus comes to the board, and that's a document that you have, so you can see where those funds are being used. And typically, it's equipment that's spent for. 7, okay. Is there any questions on 6? I don't want to, if there's any questions, we'll stop. I don't want to rush you through it if there's, no, okay. 7, on expenditures and wealth data paragraph in the memo and board, page 2, it mentions additional funding would allow for expanded ops to impact student performance. What are some of the opportunities that we'd like to put in place that will provide an impact? We would love to offer additional courses at the high school. Over the years, the only thing we've really added new was our career pathways person, Millie, which we brought forward. So additional courses. The other part is our whole our number of reading and writing interventionists, if elementary had their choice, and I can hear Al in my ear right now saying that he typically puts forward that don't have a writing interventionist at the elementary. That's been asked for a year and year. You're not seeing what those are because every year we can't even get to the point where we have the funding not to cut any positions at all. Like, we're always there. So you're not seeing what some of those different options would be, but there definitely are. Class size, interventions I talked about, course offerings I shared, additional learning materials, we're holding supplies at 0. So, obviously having additional funds to buy additional supplies would be great too.
So we wouldn't know if teachers are paying for supplies out of pocket and not submitting for reimbursement. So there's no way to calculate how much is being paid on their own. But I will tell you, in my tenure as a director of finance and finance and operations, a building principal has not ever denied a reimbursement request. So as long as that teacher gets prior approval through their building admin to purchase supplies, they submit the reimbursement. They don't get reimbursed taxes. If they go through the process, they are typically reimbursed. So that's where we are with that one.
I can speak clearly, I don't mind the principals echoing. Has there ever been a time where you've had to request a staff member to purchase something on their own? Any of you that have been here? No. So that whole part that went out last year about teachers having to buy their own things because we don't have supply money is total fallacy. And I could bring every principal up here to the microphone. There is enough money in supplies to supply with paper, anything that they need that's required in the classroom. So no one has to petition parents to purchase anything additional to the classroom, okay?
I think teachers purchase things on their own because they want a certain theme in their classroom, because they want it to look cute, and, so there are things that teachers are going to purchase, but not because they can't get it through the supply items.
And
It's because it's something above and beyond that they want.
If they go to the administration and say, I'd like to purchase X, the administration says, yes, I have the funding, will allow you to get that, the money comes out of the building. If they wanted something that exceed, like something specific that they wanted above and beyond, yes, they may purchase it themselves and so on. But it's not as though there's not money, as it was insinuated last year, there's not money in that we're asking teachers to purchase. That's not the case. Yes.
The things that's very frequently purchased is paper towels. Is there any way that we could provide a more absorbent paper towel?
You can. There'll be a cost to that, but
It'll
we
be
can.
more expensive.
And it'll be more than the $3,712 that we have for custodial increases in the budget. But yes, we can't purchase, Bounty or that type of cloth instead of the way, but there's an expense to that. So it
I
has
mean, the
to
ones that
increase.
we buy, I feel like they're completely useless anyway, so there's no benefit to them.
Well,
We're saving costs.
well,
So
you know,
those three
well, we-
cases of the paper towels are actually less than that one case of Bounty. So, and that's typically.
Well, I mean, I would
And it's on a
assume,
state contract, so it's just the supplies, and it's also not just the paper towel itself, it's the dispensers, it's a whole thing.
You'll find
It's a whole thing.
that most districts, school districts, not that we have to be like most, across state will have the similar paper towels because they're on state contract. And as Ashley said, they're probably a fourth of the cost or less than what it would cost for a more absorbent one. So,
I know they're like the white ones, they absorb more. The
Yeah,
brown
right.
ones, you just push, it just pushes things everywhere.
Cause it's more paper than,
bag.
it's
Yeah.
not as, it's not as
I don't know,
soft.
they're like the same, they're very similar, very thin, but whatever.
So
Just
the
figured
answer-
I'd
the
throw it
answer
out there.
The answer is yes, but it's just a cost, that's a cost item, that's all. So.
I'm gonna
I have a
research
question
paper
with number 7. With the
towels.
reading interventionalist,
Researching
how
paper
much would it
towels.
cost for one? Like
A
if,
reading interventionist is roughly 100,000, 110,000, depending. Typically, a reading interventionist has multiple degrees, so you're gonna find someone who has experience, probably 10 years plus, so the top step. And then, so you're looking at paying them for their degrees as well as their time. So they're probably top step close to 100,000 plus benefits, 120,000 or more.
Depends on the benefit package.
Yeah.
and how
what's-
many do you currently have?
I need a little help with this one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have 8 elementary interventionists and 2 at the middle school.
And ideally, if we had an infinite amount of money, what would that look like? How many would we ideally want in each school?
I would like to say ideally,
Mhm.
if we we had one for every grade level at the elementary, it'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Especially at the elementary, even more so in the primary. There's a lot of research that says students reading at grade level by third grade is a predictor of success in life.
And so 8 is between all the elementary schools,
Yes, correct.
Mm.
The next question, number 9, how many board members utilize CAVE? I went and did a dive back for the last 3 years and just looked at the number of board members that are attending conferences virtually or in person. It's usually 3 to 4 BOE members utilize CAVE for virtual conferences. Shipman, and then the next question was, can Shipman and Goodwin can advise us on legal matters, including some but not all of the areas covered by CAVE? The cost would be dependent on how frequently you use Shipman and Goodwin. Shipman and Goodwin typically is, we'll say on a ballpark, close to $500 per hour. Some are a little less, some are a little more, depending on what attorney we receive. So that's what we're looking at as a cost.
So the next question is regarding aging technology. Unfortunately, our help desk software doesn't necessarily track based on the age of the actual piece of technology, but I can tell you that they're responding to 171 incidents per week, which has steadily increased over the last several years. We have officially 4 technicians and that are actually IT technicians, and they typically go for your break fix classroom things to make sure that those online or those pieces of equipment are back online and running in a reasonable amount of time. And with the number of tickets that are coming in, our system administrators and our assistant system administrators, who typically work on more back end, more heavier stuff, are pulled out of that to do break fixes. So it's all kind of flows together with as the equipment gets older. We need more people we need more people fixing those things that are going down, so we can get it up and running for the classroom teachers.
Our ratio of IT help per device is much lower than industry standard outside of school. And I will state with total confidence that our IT staff is exceptional, and I can state with total confidence when we have joint ventures with the town, our IT staff has helped the town on multiple occasions, whether it be the police station, town issues, and so on. I'll rave about the gentleman sitting in the back, and I don't mean to embarrass him. Craig Sumansky's been with us probably for 25 years, and is exceptional. We're safe, we're secure, it doesn't go down, great connectivity, does a real nice job. So definitely appreciate that. The next one I'll take. What percentage of students, this was a great question, on 504 plans that progress to the point of moving off the plan each year, or and once you are on a plan, you stay on it? Is this the norm? Recommend students to stay on the plan even when their needs have improved? A 504 plan is different than an IEP. A 504 plan could be initiated by a parent. A broken arm to the writing hand could be a 504 plan. That's a 504 plan that would typically end. But there are 504 plans that mean extended time or things that students need, and oftentimes those do stay in place. So it's not the norm, as you can read here, it's not the norm that students come off. They typically do stay on the 504, some of the 504 plans, if it's helping them to be successful. So.
The next question, I can't really speak where people are getting their data from, although it is possible that there is a different data source that's used for this particular question. I can tell you that we do and have historically done the October collection for the per pupil, which you have a breakdown of what that looks like. A couple things can change in these collections as the audits settle. So if somebody's pulling the data before or after, it could change the actual cost per pupil.
Want me to, or you want me to?
Sure. For 13?
Yeah.
So this one I think is kind of blurring two different fiscal years. The 25-26 we're currently in right now, and that operating BOE request was 6.86, and we received the increase of 3.91. And a majority of that increase of the 6.86 was that state mandated reading program, which was later funded by the town. since we're currently in our fiscal '26 operating year, we haven't projected our year-end surplus. That typically doesn't get done until the end of the third quarter, as we monitor as things get a little closer. So closer to the end of the year, we'll have more accurate numbers as for a surplus. And traditionally, yes, surplus is used to fund equipment, technology, things like that. I did also include a list of the equipment purchase for fiscal '25 because the numbers of the 6.39 and the 3.27 reference fiscal '25. I also think that the other pieces of this are answered in the Board of Finance questions and the breakdown as to where the money came from and where it went, and the breakdown of how we spent it. So all of that information is in that question.
You wanna do the next one? I'll do the next one after that. Jump in grid.
So what we have here is we have the three major technology lines that you guys see from year to year. What we put together is, what we requested as far as the budget, what was actually given, our actuals from the previous fiscal year, and how we came up with the '26-27 proposal. So as you can see, our requests are typically higher than what is actually received, and then it's funded with the year end. And this was for our infrastructure lines. Same goes for the equipment, one-on-one equipment, where we request 81,000, we receive 59,000. Actuals are closer to the 87. And then we have our, what we consider instructional or not one-to-one, that's our building technology, laptops, projectors, things like that.
Then, can you list every program software subscription used? So if you look on, there's a attachment on the back, it lists out the software subscriptions. What we try to do annually is to take a look at what subscriptions we're subscribing to, the usage. If they're not being used at a frequent rate, we often ask, is there something else that can be used? Or if it's not cost effective. So we go through and then try to reduce those based on that. So it's not an endless that, we just keep paying if it's not being used and how it's being used. How much do they cost? Just not lumped together. You can see it listed out on the back. It lists out what each one would cost. Who uses the program software subscriptions? You'll find out it's listed by the grade levels of what they're used and so on. So you can find those in attached documents in the back. And the next one, how often is K3 utilizing iPads and how long each day? Pre-K2 is using iPads with every limited use, not every day. They're used to support the following in K2: handwriting without tears, to help practice handwriting format, generally 10 minutes a day, 1 to 2 days a week. Lexia is a program that addresses a range of reading and literacy skills throughout its structured adaptive program to practice phonemic awareness, phonemic work, vocabulary development, fluency, comprehension. This is aligned to each student's individual needs, and the students in K2 have access, as this program offers both repetition, guided practice when needed, as well as challenge enrichment for students who have already demonstrated mastery of specific skills. Not all students have the same needs. 10 minutes a day, 2 to 4 days a week. Raz Kids is another one here, allows teachers to assign books to students so that they are able to practice the skills they need to do. Because the students have many different opportunities to practice with not only physical books, practice can be limited. Students also need to practice reading physical books and books on computers because they take the SBA. The SBA being the Smarter Balanced Assessment. Keyboard practice depends on grades 2. Second half of the year, generally 15 minutes a day, 3 days a week. Grade 2, because grade 3, they actually take the assessment on a computer for SBAC. They also used by teachers literacy universal screens required by the State Department of Education 3 times per year. These reads be completed during the specific testing window. Dreambox Learning for math and K1. To Do Math and K at Griswold for individualized practice of skill. IXL for math and grades 2 for benchmark assessments, monitoring progress of individual practice. Math Fact Lab in grade 2 for developing fluency in math facts, individualized practice of assessment based on student level. And I'll just keep going here. Are Chromebooks being used 1-to-1 in grades 4 to 5? Chromebooks are used 1-to-1 grades 3 to 5. Do they take the computers home? No, they do not. And the last one, if not, how often do they use the computers and for how long each day? an average 2 hours per day. And it's not 2 hours sitting on the Chromebook. It's 2 hours totality for the day. Any questions on that one? That was a lengthy question. Okay. Consultants, how many consultants have we been employed in the 24-25 school year? If you look, what do we hire each one for? This is all listed on page 15A and B in the a list of consultants that we hired. We can, if you want to turn to that, and go to that. I just want to state that, you know, having our resources internally and those that work, having consultants, we have a history of hiring limited consultants, but high-quality consultants, and the impact has been great. I can share that, you know, Heidi Hayes Jacobs has worked with us for years, and she really was instrumental in, you know, where the high school is today, and also, you know, our Quest program at McGee, which won the Follett Challenge. She's helped us to really move the district forward in thinking in a different way. So you can see, let me get to the right page here. You have it right there? Thank you. So, any questions on those? Like, so Casorano is one that we've used this year, high-quality instruction. That's a district-wide initiative. Obviously, understanding what high-quality instruction is and getting this universal understanding across the district. Gravity Goldberg, curriculum and support for ELA and social studies at the secondary level. Great Minds, implementation, what's that?
It's a reading program.
Yep, that's our Wisdom program, which obviously was mandated by the state. Milestone C, really looking at, are we preparing our students for the future in 2040? Our new K classroom will be students graduating in 2040. Heidi Hayes Jacobs, I spoke of to you. Many districts couldn't get Heidi Hayes Jacobs working if they wanted to. We're also asking Heidi to come speak to the board at some point. She's been a keynote in every continent and published over 30 texts. Teacher at Columbia, lives in Rye, New York. She's exceptional. She's a curriculum expert. Shelley Ann, TDG, with our math program. Matt Mervis, those of you who had a chance, Matt talked about AI and where things are going. Totally electrified the staff, and just, you know, what lies ahead for students and what lies ahead for staff, and what we need to do as a district with it. IXL is our math program that we use in science and reading. And Thomas Murray, district back to school professional development for all staff. So oftentimes we like to get a keynote or someone who can motivate and engage staff on a relevant topic. So those are typically our PD that we use. It does not mean that we take these people every year. We look at it and say, okay, what do we have for funding? What can we do? How can we work with the staff? And really, it is important as we, and I say this to you at the retreat, and I'll say it now, as we look to recruit and retain staff, having the right PD, it's shared around the state of who you're working with and what you're doing. It attracts and retains teachers. If you're a district where it's just here and you're not moving, it does not do the same. It does not have the same engagement, because you have some high-flying teachers that are reading the work and they want to hear from the best and brightest that are out there. And it's important that we work with them, in my opinion, to the greatest degree we can. It's not an infinite pot of money that we have to do this, so.
Another thing to consider in the fiscal 26 where it says to be determined, that means we're either in the process of negotiating the contract itself, or we may not be utilizing that particular consultant in this fiscal year if they still had carry-on credits from a previous fiscal year. So that's why you see a lot of to be determineds in this current fiscal year.
Got the next one?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So yes, we are adding the school psychologist to the certified staff using the Special Education Expansion Grant, which is the SEED grant. That was a grant that was published to us in August of 2025 after the fiscal year had been established by the town council. So SEED is currently a 2-year entitlement grant. However, there have been some major discussions that this will not go away. It is expected to happen year after year after year.
16, I just want to go back. Associations, how many associations? We also listed that there for you. Associations that we belong to, that's listed in one of the references there. You can look at what they are. You know, some of them being whether it's CAPS, Kansas Association of Schools, some of them give the award that we give out at our school. CIAC is another one. These are organizations that we really have to be part of. How many students receive services at 504? What was this one? Oh, I'm sorry.
Similar,
Yep, sorry.
So the next question is, what happens when a person or program is no longer paid for by a grant? So district administration works very hard to not put positions in grants that are not what we call entitlement grants. Entitlement grants are grants that we are going to get year after year after year. We may not get the same amount of funding. It fluctuates. Sometimes it goes up. Sometimes it goes down. So we are very conscious when we're talking about people and their livelihood, we put them in a grant that's going to be sustained. In the event that something happens and one of those entitled grants change or shift, we look to our other grants. So we look to Choice, and then we look to see if there's some other grants, like maybe Perkins can cover the cost of some things. Maybe some people could be paid, just swapped out of the cafeteria fund. Somebody that's typically paid out of general can switch to cafeteria. There's only 2 positions that can do that, mind you. So what we do, and we try to do that. In the event that we cannot find other grant sources to fund grant positions, then we look to add them in the general fund the next fiscal year. If that fund is not awarded, then the position may be eliminated, but it's not necessarily the actual grant position. It may be another position that's not tied directly to a program.
Just for those people that are new to the board and things, as you know, we try to retain positions. We don't like to have people leave the district. It's not the right message to convey in a very small state, especially when the job market is tight. So as Ashley said, before we could eliminate a position, we look to see what else we can do before that person. If the grant fund's dried up, then maybe retirement, or we can move someone that was a grant into that position and then retain that position. Next one below, number 18, it is projected that we will increase by 2 students for upcoming school year on average. Our school has been trending in the loss of students over the several years consecutively. In addition to looking at the increased number of students, we also look at our students who have passed 10 years. So you can see the listing here of IEPs. Even though the number of students is going down, this is a statewide trend. The number of students requiring IEP or 504s going up across the state. So even though our numbers are down, the student needs is up. How many students receive 504s and IEPs during 25-26 school year? Has that number increased or decreased from 24-25? You can look at the numbers here, and it has increased. 10 504s and 5 IEPs. Next one here. In the proposed budget, we have 3 unanticipated outplacements. How many unanticipated outplacements have we had over the last 5 years? You can just look at what we've had over the last 5 years here. If we have unexpected placements, will the town city council cover these unexpected expenses? Under federal law, with disabilities, their town is required. So as the mayor says, if you come to me, I'll help with those. By state law, they are required. By federal law, they are required to fund that. The concern has always been by the board, though, if we came to the town and said, we need money to cover this outplacement, does the town then say, well, use your end of the year surplus, don't buy technology, pay for it with that? And that's not really what, that's, in my understanding, and it's legal, not for a superintendent, it's a legal issue, is, the board gets to decide how to spend the money that the board has by state statute. The town decides how much to give the board of the town tax dollar, but the board decides where that money's spent. So in a similar situation this past year, when we restructured special ed because of the caseload, there was a comment made to say, well, we'd pay for the teacher. Even if the board gave the money for the teacher, if the town gave the money for the teacher, the board would be the one to decide whether it goes for the teacher or it goes to something else. It's not up to the town to do it. That's from our attorney. Now, the town attorney might feel differently, but that was from our attorney when it was said, so.
Professional services that are budgeted in the special ed line are based off of our current IEPs. However, there are also students without IEPs that are receiving special ed services. It includes our translation services, nursing, outside evaluators, hearing impaired services, things like that.
What's your next one?
Yeah,
3%? And I'll skip it over.
The 3% increase in that line is essentially their benefits and salaries. It's their entire contract. So it comes over to us as the contract. the contract typically has the service provider's salary and benefits in it, as well as any travel expenses, any supplies they may use, and any kind of organizational overhead that may be, if this particular person is coming from like a Hartford healthcare type thing, so.
I have the Wit and Wisdom number 21. What year was it? It's just implemented first year is this year, 25, 26. It's being implemented K-3. This was mandated by the state's Right to Read Act. What current cost of the program? The town allocated $500,000 for implementation. Not all those funds have been allocated yet. They did move so we could get the K-3 going last year with that 200 some odd thousand. As we move forward, the cost will only be for workbooks, replacement supplemental text, may also be professional learning. We'd like to implement grade 4 this year. We should like to have the Wit and Wisdom be K-5 at least. So we're looking at another 45,000 plus professional learning. It's not been approved by the Board of Education yet, but that's where we are. What is continual professional learning cost yearly? You know, there'll be about $10,000 next year after we expand the grade 5. As you know, the time learns something new. We continue to get better at it. We were with Teachers College with the Readers and Writers Workshop. Initially, it was more PD, but we still continue to have PD over years. Because obviously, it doesn't stay stagnant. We want teachers to grow. So it's not something that the initial PD is often more, but then it definitely, we keep that going. What are the objectives of this program? How do we know this program is effective through state testing, grades, et cetera? The objectives of all the reading programs: every Connecticut student has a right to read at above grade level independently and proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. There are several programs that were approved in adoption by the State Department of Ed. After reading them, BPS took a deep look at them: Benchmark, Wit and Wisdom, Bookworm. After careful review, we chose Wit and Wisdom. There was a committee of more than 20 teachers that chose this. We'll use multiple measures to look at success in the compendium, including universal screens, unit assessment, state testing. Sure.
Finished, but just to go back to, we currently have the program, like you said, this year, K through 3, and looking to add it to 4th grade. But kind of going back to, we've only had it for a year, so how do we know that shouldn't we give it a little bit more time before we decide to implement it in the other grades? I understand like the continuum.
I'm going to answer, then I'll let Lori add in if there's more.
Okay.
Some districts who had the funding, they did K-5 implementation. We were required to do K-3, so we couldn't wait. So based on a cost measure, you know, whether it's Wit and Wisdom, we had to pick one of the approved reading programs. So our hope is, based on what we said, looking at it, Wit and Wisdom is the one. If it is, the next step is, so those 3rd graders who had Wit and Wisdom, now they're going to go to 4th grade next year, and now they're going to be going to, you know, they're not going to have Wit and Wisdom, that same, see what I'm saying? So to get to 5th grade would be great to have Wit and Wisdom as the program. When we had TC K-8 workshop model, even workshop at the high school, but at least to get to grade 5. But Lori is definitely more of an expert on literacy than me, so Lori, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so the reason why we wouldn't want to wait is we'd want these 3rd graders to have a continuous program, and since this was a program that was recommended or required by the state, one of them required by the state, then it only makes sense that we continue that so that our students have a continuous program that uses the same routines and the same knowledge building that is done K through 3. So it just continues that throughout.
And then the following year to do 5th grade, and then none of the students, so the 3rd grade comes out, they get 4th grade gets it, 4th grade goes to 5th grade gets it. So we would stack it year to year. That's the logical thought behind it. And do we know that Wit and Wisdom was going to make a difference? We hope it does, but this is a requirement from the state. We had a discussion with you a year ago.
We
We were
know that like for years, right?
Right.
Because the first year is different than the second year is different than the 3rd year of implementation. So it's really cumulative what we end up doing. So then you'd be saying our 4th and 5th graders wouldn't have this program for 3 or 4 years down the road.
Any other questions on that one? 22, assistant superintendent, when did we eliminated spring of 2023. We eliminated the assistant superintendent, and we added 2 curriculum. We had two curriculum directors. That's Lori and Cara. Why do we need the position? Support the number of new administrators and promote sustainability in the district position as necessary. There is an opportunity to restructure given the retirement of the current PBS director. Those are new to the board. Every building leader that's in the district, other than Mr. Sousa, is new within the last 3 years. So a lot of new administrators, fantastic administrators. I know you know them and their work, but they're new to their positions, if not new to the district. And, it's been discussed at retreats related to successful succession planning, allow continued high-quality school district. How much would it cost district? We actually already shared that grid with you, how much it would cost to make that happen. Choice program, better understanding of the program, how would it benefit the Berlin schools, how much money to receive per student. Currently, we're like 3.6%. 3.6% of our students are choice students. We receive $8,000 per student enrolled in the Berlin Public Schools. Oftentimes, the discussion is, why don't we receive the $22,000 or our per pupil rate? We receive $8,000 because we're not taking and starting new classes. We typically take 10 students a year in the kindergarten level, and we divide 1 or 2 students up per classroom. So it doesn't mean we're creating a whole other classroom. So we're able to do that. We use the funding that we receive to actually pay tuitions, and that's in the original budget document. It shows you what positions are being paid through the choice account. Look at achievement scores. All students who attend Berlin Public Schools through open choice are considered Berlin students, so they definitely count for our achievement and our achievement scores. What other districts are in our DERG participate in the choice program? In the Hartford area, there's many more districts in choice, but it's in Hartford, it's Cromwell, East Granby, Rocky Hill, Southington, Weathersfield, that are in our DERG. Does the choice program include special education? Does it affect our budget? Yes, the choice program does include special education. When a Berlin student who attends through the open choice program requires special education services, they receive, Berlin is responsible for covering the cost of the district stipend equivalent to the money received from open choice. So we're required to cover the first $8,000, and Hartford pays the rest. So if they need a paraprofessional, it's paid for by Hartford. The difficult part, the only part that does tax Berlin, until we get to that point, if there's concerns that we have, they're taxing our staff because they're our students. And sometimes there are issues until they qualify for special ed, and then Hartford picks up the tab. For the cost incurred, you can read through it. Hartford is billed. Yes.
Transportation built into that cost, or do we specifically pay transportation? Do
They
they
pay
specific?
transportation.
That's what I thought. I
pay
thought they
transportation.
paid.
They give us what's called a social and academic grant in addition to. So if parents can't get here for a meeting, or students want to be part of the Brownies, or students want to be on a sports team, and there's no transportation, we can use some of those funds to provide transportation. Because the belief is if we're taking a student to be a Berlin Public School student, like a regional school district that resides in Hartford, we want the students to have the educational experience and the co-curricular experience and be part of their schools. And that's important. So we encourage them to be part of whatever clubs, organizations, or sports or co-curricular activities that they'd like. And then the last one, how much does it cost the district to hire someone in this position? We already did that one. We're down bottom, sorry. Next one, number 24. This is also in your budget document. We listed it out in a table for you, where our per pupil expenditure is $23,000 this year, 449, as compared to other towns in our DERG. Are the electronic devices on a lease? No electronic devices lease. We looked at leasing. It was not practical to do that. It's not cost effective. We get more longevity. We are a Mac district predominantly. We get, the longevity on a Mac is almost double what a PC is as far as viruses and lasting, so we're Mac. And what we do with the Chromebooks, as I've said before, 6th grade, they're one-to-one, students have them. They last 6th, 7th, and 8th. In 9th grade, they get another Chromebook. That lasts 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So they're getting 3 years out of them at the middle school, a little rougher than the high school, and the high school gets 4 years out of them.
With some of them, we reuse them in the older ones, I
As
think you had
loaners.
mentioned before, like for younger grades, maybe?
Well,
Did you
sometimes,
say-
yes. The ones
Sometimes?
that could be salvageable, yes, we will put them into a cart for the younger grades.
Do we get like anything, I don't know, I just feel like it's turned into like devices and things, like, is there a way, I don't know, do we give it back and get some sort
Like
of
a recycling program?
Yeah, like,
So we do, there's only certain devices that actually qualify for a recycling
yeah,
program.
I mean, they make it
Most of
complicated like that.
them, most of the devices, if they cannot be used for spare parts, or they cannot be used for loaners, or they cannot be deployed into a elementary room, they're typically just recycled because they are not eligible for any type of reimbursement or type of recycling for funds. So, whenever we can, like if there's a piece of equipment that can be recycled for cash, like $15, we'll do it. But we also have a storage problem, so we're not gonna take somebody's PC, recycle it for $15. What we would accumulate a pallet worth, so it's like worth our while, and it's just it doesn't work for us for a lot of reasons.
The Chromebooks in particular, they're not nowhere near as expensive as a laptop, full functioning PC. So when they go through their life cycle, they're not, there's not much value to them. Want to do next one, Chris?
Which one are we on? Yeah, so, no. The mobile carts are assigned to the 3-5 classrooms. It's just not conducive to an effective learning environment. One set per classroom would impact the state mandated testing, would really prolong that schedule. Additionally, generic logins are strictly prohibited by our data policy. It's often restricted by the actual software package itself, and it will allow students to log into each other's work, which is another issue that administrators do not want to deal with. But the biggest thing is also the schedules, especially at the elementary level. So all of your grade levels are having math at the same time, and they do that for certain pullouts and special education programs. So it would impact scheduling quite significantly, especially at the elementary level.
We made a big push years ago to try to have the technology be an integrated part of the learning. So it used to be you took tech class, and students went, and that's when they worked on their computers, and you had a computer lab of tech classes. But as you know, technology works seamlessly within the curriculum, within the lesson. They're using the Chromebook and so on, and it's a requirement, not beyond just the state testing too. Whether you're in third grade, students have to take the assessment online. So there has to be a familiarity with using technology at some point, even just for that assessment point. So it's important that the technology, our belief has always been, the technology needs to be readily available. It can't be that you're waiting for someone else to give it to you. We have to have great connectivity, and there has to be capacity of our teaching staff and our students to use it. And that's been a thrust for years, and I think that's one of the reasons why when we went out on COVID and we had that, we were in much better shape than a lot of districts because students knew how to use the technology, we had the staff that could use it, and they're using it in a proficient manner. So, what's that? Yeah. No, I don't want to go back to it. That's what you're asking about. No. But,
I was being sarcastic.
no, I know. The next one, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that was
after
the,
lunch, we'll talk about that.
where I had to recode somebody for the enterprise accounting, and then no, the coaches are itemized separately at Berlin High and McGee.
The curriculum clerical savings, I know we have retirement. Is this for a new role at a higher pay, more hours? So, and what we're doing is we're taking Margarita, who's our curriculum administrative assistant, is retiring. We're moving Kim, who is Kim Pethigal, who is Ashley's assistant. She does transportation. She's going to keep her transportation and move over with the assistant superintendent into that role where it was Margarita. And we're actually looking to find an accountant. If you look at the financing upstairs, what they have in a finance department compared to what we have here for Ashley, there's a lot of work that Ashley's doing that a person with an accounting background could do, and allowing Ashley to do other work that she's doing. So we're just shifting. And if you look back in the budgets, we've made clerical cuts here at central office last year. We had a person up front. We eliminated a PPS clerical person and then replaced Marlene, who was our person up front with that. So right now, PPS only has one administrative assistant. They used to have two. We really can't afford to lose another clerical position at central office here. Custodial?
Yeah, so the custodial is when my mail carrier unexpectedly decided not to join us after the summer That's a position that is a revolving door. It is very difficult to fill. I have constant shortages in the custodial areas, so what I did is I took the funding from the mail carrier position. I incorporated that position into the custodial contract to offer more flexibility within that existing staff group to allow for mail carrier services in addition to custodial work. So I made that position a custodial position, which is an affiliated position, so therefore the hourly wage is higher.
The next question here, what expenditures for Prairie people in relation to other towns? We already shared that with you for our DIRG. There's a chart in here, and it's well in the budget document also. What year is their curriculum supervisor retiring? I couldn't remember. This year or next year? Make more sense to bring assistant superintendent next year. Curriculum director, one of the curriculum directors is retiring effective June 2027. And question 22 talks about the same thing, about why it's important to bring someone on at this point for the assistant superintendent. And we shared that at the retreat also. It appeared that software and licensing is budgeted for. What exactly do the surplus cover technology-wise? We budget for software and licensing. Those are only the first items cut, which is why we often use surplus funds to purchase technology. If the budget passes as is, we can use those funds for other items such as furniture to replace items that are 50-plus years old, and we have been told we no longer can repair them. So the big thing is the capital amount that goes to capital has changed. Years ago, it was 10,000, then it went to 20,000, now it's at 25. So if you need to buy classroom furniture, it's not in the capital anymore. It goes against the operational. So to start putting in, furniture, and say classroom furniture, say it costs $15,000. So we do 6 classrooms, we're looking at a teacher. So we typically don't want to cut staff to do a classroom. So if we did have surplus, we'd love to start, put on a cycle, start to add new furniture for classrooms and update them. Because some of the furniture is 50-plus years old. Sure. Sure.
Oh, so I wasn't paying attention to where you were. I know we talked about the assistant superintendent at the retreat and bringing them on and the importance. 100% I understand and I agree. But I'm just wondering, do we need to bring them on the 1 year sooner when we'll still be having that salary, the one salary plus the assistant superintendent salary?
I think, as I said at the retreat, I think it's important to bring someone on for that position. Last year, there were 28 superintendencies in the state. In my years here, for superintendents that applied, there were difficulties obtaining a superintendent before. So I think bringing on the assistant superintendent next year and having that person here for multiple years is important. The work could be restructured because we are losing a central office person with, as you saw the chart, it's for $23,000 more. You would have the assistant superintendent and still have special education coverage as it was, and you'd have an assistant superintendent back. Most districts this size do have assistant superintendents. Any other? That's it? Okay.
So the mailing, so last year, halfway through the fiscal year, I entered a new mailing contract for cost savings. I don't have a full year's data, and I typically don't adjust the budget line until I have at least 1 year spend. But if this account continues to trend low, then it would be an area that we would make an adjustment for as the budget process moves forward.
Want to do the next one?
Sure. Yeah, so as personnel turns over, we like to take that opportunity to reconfigure and remodel offices that haven't been done in decades. As you've seen in offices here and also offices upstairs, we were for a very long time stuck in the 70s. I mean, there's still yellow chairs still hanging out. And you're starting to see offices getting redone as people are leaving. And that's a trend that we're doing here. As the PBS director retires, our thought is to remodel that office for the new assistant superintendent or for the new PPS director. So that's the request for that.
And it was a position of the board. I can share with you for years. I had a chair I bought from Costco, put together myself and sat in it. And the board that was here said, "You've been here 30 years, Brian. You deserve a nice office." So the board decided to start redoing the offices. But it was in conjunction with the town. The town upstairs also renovated and modernized upstairs. So that was the position. The same thing with this room is used We have other school districts here, we have the public in this room, the chairs were falling apart and things, so it was to renovate. I can tell you, we get tons of compliments from those that come into the office. The other piece is when the town decided to do the police station, which I'm not saying wasn't a great move and a good use of space, we had that whole back as storage, so now we had to consolidate. So the town gave us funds to do the front lobby, to modernize the front work area. So slowly, we're updating things, after 50 years, or as long as it's been. So that's, I hope that answers that question. Yeah, it is. No, it is.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
the back offices, look over it for.
I'm all set.
And I don't
She's got the
disagree.
original carpet down there.
And, and when we have people,
Wait until I leave, don't do it.
but when we have people, and we do get those comments, And likewise, just to add, the schools, even though they're old, that we had people in the high school, I received an email, I think I put on the board update, just, for a wrestling tournament, saying how clean the high school is and so on, and how well the schools are kept. And it's a credit to the custodial staff that does that. And it's a mark of pride for the community, when you have the public, and I mean public from outside of Berlin, that come in and see the type of, and how much pride there is. Just like, I even think about the school signage. I know we did the signage at the buildings, there was a price, but to have similar signage that looks representative, instead of having a Redwood sign that's been there for years, it says there's a sense of pride in the schools and the educational system, so. Where are we? I'm sorry.
34. So the Employee Assistance Program is just the benefit we offer. It's a third-party administrator who offers services for people who may be struggling in things outside of work that may impact their performance at work. So it's a paid benefit. It's often covered. It's often offered by most employers out there. So that's what that is. There's a brochure in the back to give you a little bit more information. And then eNavigators, our cloud-based human resources and benefit administrator program. That's what manages our open enrollment, our claims, our anything related to insurance, so we could account for what we need to financially and for the employee and the employer. The reason why the spend last year is I billed the wrong account. I corrected it for this year. Sorry.
Okay.
So this is, 35 is similar. The 19,000 is that difference in the employee assistance program and the eNavigator.
36, special education field trips, budget is 13,000. We used about 13,024 following. We're asking for additional 7,000. Do we need these field trips? Field trips are predominantly a learning experience, and they should be meaningful for the students. But with that being said, there's increased transportation, which wheelchair vans cost an additional funds. Additionally, there's more programs are working on generalized skills within the community. So getting the students out to these programs is a lot of times what the cost is of transportation. Career Pathways use exactly what's budgeted for $268. Following year, we're asked for $5,970. What changed? The program has expanded to include our Career Pathways program. Right now, earlier in the year, 25% of juniors and seniors were involved in it. We anticipate by the end of the year, there'll be 50% of the students involved. So we want that involvement. There needs to be some additional funds to support that. Part of it is, online OSHA safety courses, drone certification, some of the new courses we're offering. We just found out that all of the stoves at the high school, I'm gonna throw this out there, all of the stoves at the high school are, when we did the high school, they're not commercial. They're just, what you would homeowner stoves. They're the conventional, they're in bad shape. To replace them, the commercial, the gas lines that we have aren't commercial gas lines. So we're probably gonna be going with, now that we have to find funds to do that, but those courses, we have one already shut down, we have another one that need to be repaired, and some are falling disrepair, they're over 10 years old. And the items aren't made, especially when they're used every day, to do that. So there are those things within these courses that we have to pay for, so that's that one. You wanna do Hubbard? You wanna do Hubbard? You want me to do
Yeah,
Hubbard?
so it
15 minutes to go back and look, because I'm like, I know it was there, but mind you, it was like 1 a.m. and like everything was blurring. So, sorry, Al. I wasn't trying to throw you into...
that's the whole budget, by the
I
way.
was just... I'm like, what is going on? Like, what? What?
So yeah, the difference is we only purchased one classroom set in fiscal 25, and we're budgeting for 2 classroom sets, 6 and 7, in fiscal 26 and 27.
Couldn't we save technology and not have every student at elementary have? I think we talked about this a little already in question 26 about the need to have the availability. They have individual sign-ons and so on at the elementary. And then 40, Brian mentioned that we have extra money in curricular activities. We could potentially lose them. Aren't most of the extra school activities on a volunteer basis? No. Typically, an activity starts off as a volunteer. If the numbers warrant it, we look at our stipended positions every year and decide which activities, based on the number of students, how often they meet, whether they be paid as a club or not. So many of your after-school activities are paid. They're not just as a stipend as volunteers.
We had, I'm like, why is that there? Because I just wanted to know, moving forward, when we have to bring that up
I can make
again.
that's a good question. I think I can make a comment before I know we're going to talk about that based on those that came forward the last board meeting. I think it's important for us to note that there's other religions too. So if we start to think about entertaining one holiday, you better think about the other holidays too. I'm just putting it out there because it's here. I know it's going to be a future agenda item, but I think it's important to think about that. And I just, before we wrap, any other questions that you have, obviously you can ask any of us any questions you have at any time that weren't on here that you want to ask at this point that we might be able to answer for you. Something that came up or something you didn't get on the, if we can answer it, we'll answer it now. If not, we can send it to you with the update this week. And if there's something else that comes up, send it to us. We'll send it to you with the update so you get the immediate response. Or if you want a phone call, we'll call you with the answer.